NBC News now pretends to help trans kids by scaring trans kids. So, NBC came out and renamed their properties. MSNBC is going to be MS now because that brand is utterly destroyed. NBC News is NBC News now. And now NBC News has come out to supposedly help so-called trans kids by terrifying so-called trans kids and their families. And look, this works. I have experienced very painful results of me speaking truth about the lies of transgenderism as I see them. And mine is based on data. The data is most kids who are left alone, they go through this period of gender dysphoria, gender confusion, gender denial. Most of them, when they're left alone, get it all figured out. It's upwards of 80% of them. By the way, it used to be 90%. But that was when they weren't affirmed and told you're right and you were born in the wrong body. That used to be the case. Now society is putting downward pressure on this, that kids are being affirmed through the media. And I've very, very painfully dealt with circumstances where, because I speak about these things, I've had people who've meant a lot to me in my life announce to me in writing, I have no room for you in my life because you are homophobic. Now, again, being same-sex attracted has nothing to do with being gender defiant or gender confused, but it's been all combined together into one. And there's a prevailing feeling, and this is real. There are people who actually believe that President Trump is disappearing same-sex attracted people, that he intends to disappear them from society. There's an actual belief, and it's truly, I know people who believe this, that it's just a matter of time before the camps get set up to put so-called gender confused or gender confused so-called trans kids in these camps. And this doesn't make my friends feel better when I say this. I've said the minute that happens is the minute I take advantage of my Second Amendment rights. Because I'm not going to allow this. I don't think any sane person is going to allow such a thing. And I don't see any signs that President Trump is wanting to do such a thing. NBC News now wants you to believe that's going on. I'm going to show you a piece that they ran recently, and it is one of the thickest, most propagandistic pieces that NBC News has ever run, and that's a high bar because they're a pure propaganda network. I'll show you this in a second. First, I want to warn you. If you are a small or medium-sized business owner, or maybe even a large business owner, you may have bought some propaganda. The propaganda that you have a firewall between your business and your assets. So your business is a corporation or an LLC. So you probably file separate taxes that way. You probably reflect it that way. You're probably very careful about using your corporate credit card to only do corporate purchases so that the IRS can't come back and say, ooh, they're intermingled. And you probably think there's this firewall. I'm here to tell you, I've met now countless business people who thought they had that firewall, but they didn't. I will tell you how you can figure it out in one free, no obligation consultation. Here's a website. It's gobizable.com. Gobizable.com, that's with a Z, Bizable. And they will tell you whether you have a corporate firewall. Most people don't. When they find out if you have the corporate firewall, if you do, great, congratulations, it was a free service. If you don't have it, Bizable will solve this for you in 7 easy steps, and they'll do a lot more, like introducing you to a library of lenders who want to work with businesses your side. It's GoBizable with a Z, gobizable.com. NBC News is continuing a scare tactic. And by the way, this is vicious. It's vicious because there are people who become mentally ill, so much so that they believe that their kids are going to be taken from their homes at night by the federal government. I know people like this. Watch this report from NBC News.
15-year-old Libby Gonzalez is a lot of things.
She steals my clothes more than I steal hers.
No, I don't. That is so not true.
A sister, daughter, friend.
Okay, she's a friend, but she is not a sister nor is she a daughter because he is a boy. NBC News buys this wholesale. Now, notice they're not saying so-called trans sister, trans daughter, sister daughter, because NBC News is all in on if you claim to be something, you are something. That's the first step in the propaganda, and it's vicious because it affirms something that most kids will grow out of without medical or surgical intervention. It gets worse. It gets much worse.
And she's trans in Texas, a state that's one of the most restrictive in the country.
I love being here and I love my friends, and despite everything that's wrong with our state, I love it here
So why are you leaving?
because it's no longer safe for us.
So the Gonzalez family is leaving.
Already crying.
Not just Texas, but America.
I don't think it's one last straw. It was a buildup. We decided as a family that the onslaught that we knew was coming with this administration was going to make an environment far too unsafe for our family to stay.
The lack of safety is what? The lack of safety is kids in Texas can no longer get hormonal surgical interventions. You can go across state lines to do that. If you're the parent, you could move to a different state and do that, or you could wait. That boys no longer get to go in the girls' locker rooms, that's the lack of safety. What people mean, by the way, a lot of them is that there is an attitude, that there's an attitude of hatred towards so-called trans kids. I don't think it's a hatred towards trans kids, and if it is, I hope people will pray that out of their hearts. I think it's a hatred of being told you have to accept a lie, and that was a very predictable outcome.